Hey, welcome back to this video. Alright, so last time we talked about cleaner code, time before that we talked about the basics of the editor, so now we're good to go and just getting started with mod.io. So, we have the scripting editor. This is where we're going to be spending a lot of our time for this tutorial. So, what we're going to be doing first is I recommend you guys make a folder for the first three scripts that are initialized. It's called game management. And so this is a good script, a good folder for managing really high level scripts, meaning scripts that manage, or not high level, but scripts that manage really big parts of the game, such as the very beginning of the game's life cycle, the very beginning of a player's life cycle, and the very end of a player's life cycle. These are really big components of the game, and it's important to handle them all in one folder. So this video is all about triggers. So triggers are basically, as you can see right here, they are a component of mod.io that has to do with um, events that take place in that game. So for example, right here, if I have some trigger that says when player sends a chat message, right? This is a player trigger. So this is triggered when a player sends a chat message. Then I can add an action. This is sending a chat message. So I can send a chat message to everyone, and I'll just call it hello world. So this is kind of a mod.io hello world where we're just basically showing basic functionality of the editor. So what I did is, just to show you guys what I did from the beginning, adding an action and then sending chat message. So this, there it is, send chat message, and then it's a string. Anything red or written in a data type that you may recognize is usually editable. And then you can put a manual string of variable functions. There's a lot of things you can put. But yeah, so I'm just going to put hello world, as I did before. And so now what this is going to do is it's going to allow us to see whether hello world is displayed when I put something in the chat. So now I'm going to say, go into the game and then just type hello game. And then I'm going to press enter. And you'll see that nothing happened. And you might be wondering, wait a minute, we just wrote all this stuff, but nothing happened. But if you notice, even the editor tells us it's unsaved. So this is a really important thing. Make sure you guys save your code. This has happened to me way too many times where I just type something and I expect it to work, but it doesn't. So now I'm just going to type just like a letter A or something and see if it types hello world. And you can see right there, it sent hello world because I wrote a chat message. So that's confirming that this trigger is going to go off every time a chat message is sent. But now you might be wondering, what exactly do these triggers do? So a trigger basically gives you access to a couple parameters inside of the script. So like right here, get triggering player, and it allows you to mess with that player. So let's just say, for example, it said get triggering player, right? So get triggering player is under our control. So that means we can do something to a player. So let's look for something that we could probably do to a player and just try it out. So I encourage you guys, kick the players, hide game suggestions, open websites for the players, save their data, see what these things do. But what I'm going to be doing is showing game suggestions for triggering player. So that means right when they send a chat message, it's going to show game suggestions. So don't forget to save your code. And please, I do encourage you guys, this is all about learning how to use scripts. So use as many things as you can, and you will understand how to use these scripts a lot better. So now I'm in the game, I saved, I'm just going to send a random chat message and it should show me game suggestions. So you'll see nothing really showed up. So I'm going to just assume that game suggestions, I'm just looking around, don't really see any game suggestions, so I'm going to assume that they're not really there. So let's just try something else real quick, just to show you guys that things can happen. I don't want to quite kick the player. I want you guys to try this one. I'm sure that's a lot of fun. Um, let's just create floating text on unit. So I know this says unit and not player like we said in the triggering player, but as you'll learn in the future of this tutorial, there's a hierarchy with player types, unit types, item types, and projectile types that allows you to use units with players. So I'll explain that hierarchy in the future, but basically if you have a get triggering player, you can use anything below a player type. So everything is below a player type, so you can just use anything. So I'm just gonna write hello above this, and then I'm just gonna say on get um alright, where'd it go? Players currently selected unit. This triggering players currently selected unit with color. I don't know if you guys are familiar with hex codes, but there's this one, this is red. So I'm just gonna use red real quick. So now save our changes. Now if I type anything in the chat, it should say hello above me with red text. So hello, right there you see. So just recap what I did here, because I'm sure it's a little bit confusing. What I did is I created a floating text that says hello with a red color, but I created it on the player's currently selected unit. So how you know which unit is currently selected by a player is when you guys joined the game, you created this player, this homie, for the triggering player that joined the game, right? So when you joined, you get triggering player access, and so you can create it anywhere in the map, and you can make their camera track the last created unit. So the selected unit is basically just this last camera track. This is gonna set the selected unit, and do correct me if I'm wrong, because this may change in the future, but as to my knowledge, this will basically set the um, currently selected unit. So now we've talked about triggers, we've talked about what they do. Now I want you guys to create a new script, and I want you to put a trigger right here. So I'm going to have you pause the video, go to your editor, and please just put in a trigger, anything that looks really interesting to you, and I want you to make it send a chat message every time that trigger happens. Alright, so I hope you guys tried out some triggers. If something didn't work, maybe think about why it didn't work. If it didn't work and you're really confused, you can go ahead and go to our moderator Discord server and ask for help, but let's just continue on the video. So there's one last thing that I wanted to go over, which is when you have a script and you have some trigger that is involved with it, I highly, highly, highly recommend that you name the script the same as what the trigger says. So I know you might be tempted to name the script player chatting because this is when the player sends a chat message. But I highly recommend that you call it when player sends a chat message because as a multiplayer video game, you might have more general instructions that you want to write later that may be kind of hidden in meaning because your script name is different. So I do recommend just take this name right here, the trigger, and just put it up here. It's just gonna make life a lot easier. Like you'll see the first three scripts, they pretty much are copies of their triggers. So when the game starts, initialize. That's a synonym, so it works out. When the player joins the game, player joins. Player initiates disconnect, player leaves. So this is just a really kind of a cheat code to making games a lot easier. So now you guys know three techniques of organization. You know that your triggers and your name should be identical. You know that you should be putting things in folders, and you know that you should be using comments more often. And one thing I forgot to mention is that you can add comments to any script. So look, hello is a comment I can add to this random script, and you'll see hello above it. So that is another way to add comments. So now one last thing is you might have seen that there are some scripts, for example, in the entities section right here. If anything ever gets hidden, just click it and it'll show up to the front. But entities section, you'll see that if I go to the scripts for this homie unit, that there's start, stop, pick up, drop. and you see no triggers. So then you might be wondering where exactly these are used. Well, if I click on edit for this unit and I go to controls, you'll see that it says mouse left click or you press E. You're going to start using item. So that means that start using item is invoked when you press your left click. So that's going to be more visible when we start using items and projectiles. But for now, just take my word that this script is working because it's going to use the item currently held by this entity continuously until stopped when left click is pushed. Now let's just dive into what this means, because what's the point of a scripting tutorial if you don't understand it? So item currently held by unit is a function that you can use, and in the function you can use this parameter, this entity. So this entity is basically the script's entity. So as I said before, there's three kinds of entities: units, items, and projectiles. So the entity scripts are scripts you can make underneath a specific entity. So if I added another unit, I can make scripts for it. If I add an item, I can make scripts for it. So right here, this entity is going to use its item, and it's going to keep going until stopping. And as you can guess, when you lift up your finger from your mouse, this stop script is going to be run. So we'll get into using key bindings with unit types in the future, but it's good to understand that triggers are basically this way of triggering an event, and events are basically what runs every game in mod.io. So now you guys know the basics of triggers.